What is up on this Sunday morning? We're out listening for turkeys, scouting for turkeys, changing some batteries in the cameras. But look at the sunrise this morning. I mean, that's beautiful. But hey, this week on the Marshall Outdoor Podcast, powered by Final Draw, Larry McCoy from Respect the Game is going to be on. Great TV personality, awesome guy. If you haven't yet, go look at his YouTube channel and watch him and the guys shoot turkeys with the bow out of ground layout blinds. It's really awesome. They're kind of right there in the decoys. I thought it was great. It got me fired up for season. But also, Brady and I go into the second part of chapter 1 of the book of John in the Faithful Outdoorsman series segment. So, yeah, we're going to continue looking at the sunrise this morning. Thought I heard a turkey gobble, kind of caught my attention. But, hey, appreciate it. Y'all stick around for some great content this week on the Marshall Outdoor Podcast. Turkey season's on the way. All right, another week of the Marshall Outdoor Podcast, and look, I appreciate you tuning in. Since November, we've been putting out, I think, 2 a week now, and it's not really work when you're enjoying what you're doing. So, besides my full-time job, Larry, this has been a Sunday, every Saturday morning, 6 a.m. and a Sunday at 8 p.m. type thing. Yeah. But I've been enjoying it. But on the other side of the screen from me, I got Larry McCoy from Respect the Game. And a lot of other things that we're going to dive into. He's got many feathers in his hats, it seems like, that we're going to have to, start pulling out and piecing together to get the story of your background, Larry. But I appreciate you joining me tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Larry, where are you at right now?
I'm in Missouri.
Okay, and that's where you kind of grew up?
Yep, that's where I grew up, born and raised, and just itching for turkey season to start. We'll be here in a couple weeks. We're going to kick it off down in Texas, I think so.
Yeah, awesome.
Yep.
Well, I'm itching to kind of get into some turkey hunting stuff. I think I texted you the other day. I saw some of your footage with you all in some layout blinds shooting turkeys, and about two seasons ago, 2.5 seasons ago now, 3 seasons, I started really enjoying taking the bow. That's all I do is take the bow turkey hunting now, and I just enjoy the challenge. I enjoy all of I self film, and so I'm usually in a blind so I can keep moving around and stuff. But when I saw y'all shooting turkeys out of those layout blinds, and also just how tough it is. When you get a flock of turkeys that come in, it's tough to find a point to draw and stuff. But we can definitely get into that. That seemed fun.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and it didn't just happen. There's a story behind how that all came about, and then and actually doing it to a point to where it was going to be successful.
Yeah.
There was a lot of trial and error going into it, but I did learn a lot along the way, as far as not necessarily from the hunting side, but just how turkeys act when they're that close. I mean, when they're 5, 6, 7 yards from you, and I mean eye to eye, you hear things that you normally don't hear. You can just see their mannerisms and how they respond and how they act. So it taught me a lot, really paying attention to that and knowing, I guess, what to do next when the time comes. I guess when that bird's right there, because the first thing your head tells you to do is you want to rush it.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly how I felt the first time. It's the first time I took my bow. I'd scout these turkeys. I mean, I had it down to where they were actually at and coming out in the field in times. I mean, it was just set up for success. And that opening morning, I mean, like clockwork, they gobbled right behind me about 100 yards, popped down in a little field, come through it's like a little, maybe 50 yard wide, stay in the woods, out into this turf field. 2 gobblers, here they come. Well, the first thing I want to do is just draw back. I was so worried about getting drawn back on them. And of course, they see me. And I mean, I'm in a blind too, and kind of take off. And I'm like, well, this isn't going to be as easy as I thought it was.
Well, if you turkey hunting much, I mean, you've probably experienced, those birds that fly down in the morning. They go up to the middle of the field, strut around, gobble out there. The hens come to them. They just piddle around out in the middle of the field, and pretty much you're sitting on the edge of the field, wondering, just hoping that they're going to come your way, or they may be answering your calls, but they've got the hens there, and the hens take them off the other direction. Well, it all came about. That happened like 4 days in a row, and I looked over at Ryan, which is one of the guys that own Respect the Game with us too. And I said, tomorrow morning we're gonna be out there waiting for him. And he's like, what do you mean? And so we literally went right out in the middle of the field in the dark with layout blinds, and we could see the birds. I mean, plain as day. We were just, and we weren't like in layout blinds like waterfowl hunters laying
Right.
down. I was just sitting up straight with the bow on a stand between my legs and just sitting still, calling, and the bird flew down. And I mean, come running right into that decoy like it was. And I was just sitting there. I mean, literally, the closest thing cover was 80 yards.
Yeah.
And they come in, and like you said, the first thing, I mean, they were like right. I mean, they were probably maybe 6 or 7 yards,
Hmm.
just stopping the decoy, and another Tom had come over from my left. I mean, like right beside us, and I mean, I could have reached out and grabbed him, and he's just in full strut, and I'm like sitting right in the middle of this and just frozen. But your mind's telling you you just need to draw and
Right.
do it. So I ended up getting busted uh, by the birds that time. And then there's a couple of times the next time I went out, it worked again. I mean, we had the birds come right in, and we were just set out in a wheat stubble field,
Hmm.
and the birds. I got drawn back on the bird, but I was so amped up, I rushed my shot and I missed the bird at like 12 yards. And
Right.
so
Like,
I was
what the
like,
heck's going
yeah,
on?
I was like, "Whoa." but
That shouldn't
but
happen.
yeah, yeah, it's like, but I mean, that's
Right.
why I do it, to get amped up like that. So we continued to try to do it, and then finally we were like, you know what, we're just going to be patient and
Hmm.
let the birds get settled in. And once they get settled in and fixed on that decoy, it's amazing too what you can get away with. Really,
Hmm.
just pay attention to, if there's more than one bird. Any advice that I would give is pay attention to the bird you want to shoot,
Yeah.
and then don't worry about the other birds. Pay
Hmm.
attention to that one. And when the time's right for you to draw on that bird, draw on that bird,
Yeah.
because then you're going to be focused on that one bird, and you're kind of slowing your mind down
Makes sense.
as well. Because and it goes back to a lot of questions we've been getting asked on our YouTube channel, and people emailing us and stuff, is what decoys we like, as far as a strutter decoy versus a jig, just regular jig decoy. When I'm bow hunting turkeys, I'm not really particular, but I would prefer a strutting decoy. The only reason for that is it provides a little bit of cover whenever the bird, because the bird usually circles the decoy, or
Hmm.
if he's stopping that decoy, the decoy's spinning, and he's going to try to get head on. Well, when he gets head on one way, or it comes in from the rear, you have that fan between you and him.
Right.
So it provides a little bit of cover, and if he's that affixed on the decoy, you should be able to get drawn and settle in, uh, and to be
Yeah.
able to pick a spot to shoot
Yeah,
to.
that makes sense because, I've been, over the last couple years really been trying to hone in on this, this goal that I keep setting each year. And, last 2 years I've been really successful after I kind of got that mindset of slowing the hunt down a little bit, but, positioning your decoy. At first I had just like a half strut jake over a breeder hen and a feeder off to the
Mhm.
side or something like that, depending on time of year and stuff like that. But I found that, like you said, when you have that fan, like I'll take my half strut jake and I'll take a fan that I dried out and put
Mhm.
it on a stake and just put it in behind it. And like you
Mhm.
said, when they circle that decoy, sometimes you don't get their fan to you all the time,
Right.
and,
Yep.
sometimes it's hard to wait for them to get that fan to you all the time. So
Right.
it does give you some cover. Last year, the one thing that I ran into is the one turkey, I think it was the second or third turkey last year. He came in and then he kind of circled, kind of came into the right side of the decoy. And I usually have it facing me, just thinking that, maybe at first he'll kind of come up to the front of it or fight from the front or something. Um, Instead of fighting the decoy, he cut him off and wanted to get up and breed,
Yep.
breed the hen. So then he
Yep.
just standing there looking at me. I'm like, dang. But
Yep.
it all worked out. And he kind of had his mind off everything else after that anyway. So
A lot of times too, a lot of people like that breeding pair to where they're like right on top of each other, and it works great. Um, Whenever you want to shoot the bird coming to you, they will fob the decoy and pretty much thump him as well. But what I noticed a lot of times is if I got a bedded hen or a lay down hen some point, I put just a little bit of space in between
Mm-hmm.
that tom and that, even if it is a half strut Jake or
Mm-hmm.
3/4 strut Jake or whatever. The reason for that is I want that bird to be able to get around that tom decoy without having to break stride.
Yeah,
Because
that makes
if he
sense.
doesn't have to break stride, he's going to be more and more fixed on that decoy, and
Right.
or he's going to go over and climb on that hen. He's
Yep.
going to be more apt to either jump on, try to breed that
Mm-hmm.
decoy, and if he's trying to breed the decoy, you can do jumping jacks,
Right.
and he's
He's
not,
getting off.
yeah, yeah, he's not going to see you. But
Right.
the thing about it is really patience and
Mm-hmm.
uh, when you're archery hunting turkeys, whether you're in a blind, outside of a blind, whatever method you choose to use, it's really just patience and making sure that you set the decoys up to where you can shoot comfortably,
Mm-hmm.
because you're expecting them to come to the decoy. A lot of people will put them straight out in front, and when you try to draw a bow, you're not really drawing like this. It needs to be, if you're right-handed, kind of on your left shoulder. So when you draw back, he's right
Right.
there. And if you're left-handed, over on this side,
Right.
uh, and just make sure there's visibility and there's some space for him to get around.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's what's really helped me is pay attention to those little things like that. As far as even when turkeys come out and they lock up, see them lock up out there just a little ways. A lot of times, if they see that space, it also helps the decoys move a little bit, so it
Mm-hmm.
provides more realism in it, and it appears like there's even more birds there because they're more spread out.
Right.
Uh, so that's just something that's definitely worked for me, no matter whether it's the beginning of the season or the end of the season.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And the other thing I was going to ask you, I'm glad this is the big thing that I wanted to talk about was
Mhm.
that layout blind hunting, because I was so
Uh-huh.
interested I probably watched the videos 2 or 3 different times, the ones you have up
Mhm.
on the YouTube page, but man, how do you keep your back from giving out and sitting
Well,
there?
it's got a support there, so I'm actually leaned up against the
Right.
back. The
Yeah.
back, it's got a frame, but if and any layout blind will work. Most layout blinds will have the flaps that
Mm-hmm.
come out, and they usually have a structure in them.
Yeah.
Well, I take those aluminum rods out so it just lays flat, and it just lays right over my bows, just sitting there, and literally, I can call underneath that flap, not have to worry about anything,
Mm-hmm.
and literally just watch it all unfold. But
Right.
being patient is the toughest thing though I'm doing
Right.
they're that
Now, is
close.
there a reason you chose layout blinds instead of just taking like a 4-inch turkey chair out there and sitting? Like, I guess it covers your leg movement up a little bit or something like that.
Yeah, because it's if you have to sit for a lengthy amount of time. I mean, I'm human. My legs are gonna fall asleep. You got to be able to move a little bit. So
Worse and worse as we get older.
right, yeah, yeah. So that's so it was just one of those things where I was like, I'm just gonna go try it, and
Yeah.
it's so far it's worked, no matter where we've been. And
Hmm.
well, I mean, we get a lot of slack online. Oh, that because that's a Rio or that's a Merriam. Well, we've done it on Easterns. We've done it on about all of them. So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of getting in a spot where the birds want to be, and then getting them a fix on the decoys.
Hmm.
And once you do that, you've got half the game beat. Now you just have to execute.
Right. All right, look, we're out with the family today. We're doing some walking, did some kite flying, trying to find some place to put some cameras out for the turkeys. We ended up stumbling upon this shed. I think it's Murphy, which we'll put a picture up later on. But got some awesome news. We have our title sponsor now for the Martial Outdoor Podcast. Final Draw TV has come along and thought enough of us to become our title sponsor. So we're going to work with them a lot. You can see all their content, all their videos on their YouTube page. Also, go over to the Mossy Oak Go app. You can keep up with them there. They're on the Sportsman channel 52 weeks now, so you will not miss any action. But yeah, through the podcast, you will hear some tips, tricks from them, what's going on in the Final Draw TV world, and we're looking forward to what's to come. So y'all keep up with the Martial Outdoor Podcast and Final Draw TV, and we'll have some great content coming to you. But he missed the
Ryan.
first one.
Yeah.
He was so like, I mean, you could just see he was just so distraught after missing that one. And I was like,
Yep.
dang. And then they came in, he doubled up. So
Yep.
Worked
Yeah,
out.
and he just run that was his first time. Ryan's actually first time in the blind, and I told him, I said I hopped behind the lens, and I told him, I said, this is gonna be another element to the game, I'm
Yeah,
telling you." I said,
yeah,
"You and those birds came in," he said, "Man, I've never been that shook up on a turkey." I
yeah.
said, "I'm telling you, it is intense."
Well, a lot of times, Larry, I talk about progressions and for many of my guests, which we'll kind of get into in a minute. We're kind of going a little off key here, but I enjoy just the rabbit holes and stuff. But when we're talking about progressions, sometimes we never get tired of the hunt, right? We never get, but when you add another element or something new, it almost takes you back to that first, first time, when you were a
Yep.
kid, and it brings back those memories and brings back those feelings, and it's crazy how it just shakes you up, a whole
Well, the
different
thing
element
is, I
to
mean,
go in.
yeah, you're exactly right, and I mean, ultimately, I think about those early days when I was a young kid getting into hunting my first deer, my first turkey, and with technology and the way of the world now, it's easy to put those methods and stuff kind of on the back burner to try to
Mhm.
stay up with keep up with the Joneses, I guess. But
Right.
but if it was successful then, because I do think that game, birds and deer and turkeys, they all evolve
Mhm.
just like humans do. I think with whether it be from a scent or the way style that someone's hunting, or based upon what's out, the birds will evolve,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
It definitely
so
is like a
sometimes,
survival instinct. I mean, I
yeah.
think, I'm not a biologist by no means, but when you even look at waterfowl, I think sometimes I feel like they change their flight patterns over, years and years of bust them out of the same field, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden now there's like you don't kill them much anymore. So I think you're right, exactly right. They get used to that pressure and start
Yeah.
changing.
So outside the box is a good thing in my opinion, and it kind of presses you to even learn a little bit more about. Although we've been successful, I feel like you always want to be learning new things, and
Hmm.
the more I can learn about a turkey or a deer or whatever I'm hunting, the better I feel like the better odds I'm going to have, because
Right.
it's ultimately, you've got to outsmart that animal and kind of beat him at his own game,
Hmm.
and that's why versatility is key. We were, I've done a few whitetail calling seminars and stuff, and a lot of questions come up about sitting in, they've killed these, a deer in the same tree the 3 years in a row, but this year
Hmm.
they just ain't been walking by that tree. But humans are creatures of habit. And so what did he do? He sat there and he watched the deer do the same thing for a good part of the season.
Hmm.
And I said, sometimes you got to be versatile. You got to be able to adapt, move. There may not be a tree or a place to set that's right there on the X,
Hmm.
but get closer to that, because now once you get in that zone, just like calling a turkey, whenever you're calling a turkey from 200 yards versus calling a turkey at 40 yards, it's totally different. If you're in
Right.
that zone, there's a good chance he's coming.
Hmm.
And same way when calling deer and
Yeah.
really anything,
Yeah.
it's when you're in that zone, you might be able to pull them to present an opportunity,
Right.
to make something happen. Think outside the box. Think about the wind. Think about all the right things to do, but get closer to them so you can really figure out the next step to get closer. So you're going to be, so you have a better chance of being successful, because uh, you could sit right there in the same spot and watch the deer do the same thing all season, and then the next season they may go back. You may
Right.
move and then go back to doing. You got to hunt for the now,
Right.
and all the way to pay attention to the details of the details is another thing that we talk about all the time. And what I mean by that is, if you're hunting a food plot or if you're hunting a ridge or whatever with a north wind, keep track of which way the wind's blowing, which direction you're seeing the deer come from, where they're coming from, with that particular wind.
Hmm.
And they may come from a different direction with a south wind, or what they may enter this food plot with a south wind on this side and with a north wind over on this side, or the details of the details will definitely help create a lot more success as far
Hmm.
as you presenting opportunities to harvest the animal.
Yeah, that makes sense. And from going and doing more of like running and gunning, as far as turkeys go, when I was, 13 on up through high school and college and even to the last 3 years. And then I switched to bow hunting. You learn so much from just paying attention, like
Hmm.
paying attention, watching turkeys. And then, maybe the first weekend I'm not that successful or, something, but I end up, seeing what they're doing. Like last year, I saw what they were doing. I changed my tactics, changed my setup, where my location was, and ended up being successful. But the one thing that I found, almost all the turkeys that I've killed over the last 3 years with the bow, there is that, like, little bubble. There's a little
Hmm.
bubble that if you get that bubble, maybe 80 yards, 90 yards, whatever it is, they're gonna leave whatever they're doing and
Yep.
come to you, that those
Yep.
decoys you're calling, and the decoy setup. That
For
scenario
sure.
that you're presenting. So it's
Yep.
pretty neat that you were saying, you can watch
Yep.
those types of being around the X, not you don't have to be right on it.
For sure. So the quick story. Whenever my early days and hunting, I went out and I hadn't used a diaphragm turkey call that much at the time,
Mhm,
um, or at least I have, but I never felt like I was really that good at it. And
mhm.
just one particular morning we went to this farm, and I mean we got set up. I was hitting them, and I mean I could every time I made a peep, these birds were gobbling. It just seemed like
Like,
it was.
"Man, I am pretty good."
And I'm like, man, all right, I'm sticking my chest out, and wanting to strutting around in a circle. I'm like, man, they're all about it. Well, so I got to, and then we were filming. Obviously, way back then it was me and my brother. We were just filming for our own, for just so we can go back and watch it. Well, I realized real quick that that bird wasn't gobbling at me. He was gobbling at. There was an eagle's nest that was there, and that the eagle would scream, and they would all just
Mhm.
fire up, and so it really made me start to pay attention
Yeah,
everything around. Like if I'm walking in the woods and I hear crows, or if I hear pileated woodpeckers, or if guys got chickens, the farmers got chickens, you got roosters crowing or whatever.
right,
A lot of times they'll locate the turkeys for you,
right.
and it's just paying attention to all of those little things,
Mhm.
uh, to and taking advantage of those situations when they do arise.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And talking about that real quick, a story I have for you is, probably for the last 7 years, we have this we have a gas line that my dad, the farm owns like half of, just maybe it's maybe 60 acres, and the gas line runs through hardwoods on both sides. It's an awesome place to turkey hunt. So I went up there this morning scouting and putting cameras out, and every year for the last 7 years now, I've had owls come up and hoot and stuff like that. They'll usually come check you out when you're hooting in the morning or something like that. But I named this owl Hal the owl. 7 years, man. He will come from. I mean, you'll hear him hundreds and hundreds of yards off, and he will come every year. And he'll. If I started the truck and then you walk through the hardwoods to the gas line, probably 200-300 yards, he'll sit there and you call to him, he'll come sit over you, start hooting, and as you're walking down to the gas line, he just keeps following you all the way down,
Yeah.
all the way down, all the way down, and so he keeps locating the bird, which is pretty funny. And I showed, now I got two little girls, Edie and Everly. Edie was with me last year, so she got to see him, and he'd come up, broad daylight. We were, scouting then and trying to locate some birds in the morning. He'd come up and just sit there and hoot. But it's funny when you can kind of pick out different things like that,
Yep.
if you pay attention.
Yep. For sure. And two, obviously being a filming hunts, and you said you self film, and I've done quite a bit of self filming as well, and been behind my segue into the industry was actually behind the lens. I freelance
Mhm,
videoed for about, if you watch their show, I probably filmed at some point with
mhm.
them over the years. But me and my brother, we just kind of started filming our hunts. We'd take turns hunting and filming and back and forth, and yeah. So then we decided, hey, you know what? I was in the market for a new bow, so I went up to the archery shop and I ran into a guy up there and said, "Man, I'm going to do this." He was with a show called the American Outdoorsman,
Mhm,
and his camera guy got sick or whatever, so I just went and filmed them that morning with their gear, and then I talked to another guy over there, and he's like, "Hey, I went and filmed him, and then we filmed each other for a while, and then we decided to start our own show, and that show's still going on today, and my brother's still part of that show,
mhm.
which is Heartland Bowhunter, and so I was a part of that at the beginning, and then I went to work with Elite Archery, and we've had respect the game ever since. We're filming
Yeah,
our 13th season, so
that's
you know,
amazing.
filming and documenting the hunts has always been important. Important part to me. I've gotten to learn quite a bit.
Hmm.
I've a lot of stuff that I missed in the field. Going back and watching some of the footage, I've been like,
Yeah,
man, I didn't see that in the field. But and you find yourself remembering that all of that stuff, you know,
right,
when those situations occur again
right.
and stuff. So it's thoroughly helped me quite a bit. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, because you have a TV show, you know, you just walk out there and it happens, and it's not. I mean, we've been yeah, we hunt just as hard as anybody. We can only show, you know, 22 minutes of in a
Right.
30-minute episode. So it's
That's a whole lot of footage you have to get for that little bit of show
yeah,
too.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
So yeah, so
Well,
it's
yeah,
a
I mean,
lot
I
of
think
fun.
that's gonna kinda lead us into, like, I really wanna kinda unwind, where hunting started for you and stuff like that, so, if you wanna just go into maybe that first moment or that first real, young memory that you have that kinda gave you that spark, and then we'll kind of roll through that into, your career now. I think it'd be
Yeah. So yeah, my grandpa, my dad, they've all been they had coon hounds. My dad had his own bloodline of coon hounds, and so we ran a lot of hounds and coon dogs growing up, and got into, you know, if it was rabbit, squirrel, it didn't matter. I was out in the woods. I mean, all
Mhm,
the time, and so with that, I mean, it didn't matter if it was in season. We were going hunting somewhere. So I just took uh, took a liking to hunting in general. And as I got older and was able to shoot a gun by myself and all that, shooting my first deer, and it just I was just hooked. I couldn't. I mean, it's all I could think about was
mhm,
either hunting or fishing. And so literally, I just kind of I would go and just watch deer. I'd keep a notebook on, like I said, paying attention to what the deer were doing,
mhm,
even how many deer I was seeing with this wind, and then I compare it every single year and seeing that there was a lot of consistency there. So we just when we started filming hunts, it was, we just started taking some of that knowledge growing up that we and and just kind of applying it
right,
to that and actually being able to document it. And it's worked out. I mean, not to make it sound like it's not, but it's still hunting. You know, we
mhm,
hunt our butts off, and
yeah,
there's good days, there's bad days, and we still make mistakes just like everybody else.
mhm,
Uh, it just, but that's what keeps us going.
right.
You learn from those mistakes and
Makes you
learn.
wanna go back, makes you wanna
Yeah,
go back and
exactly.
fix it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of, I mean, like I said, it's just been ingrained in me since I was young,
Mhm.
and I can't even visualize not being able to do it.
Right. Well, one of the things I think is pretty neat about your show, and especially the turkey episodes I watched the other day, is that you didn't cut out the misses. Like,
Hmm.
usually, YouTube might be a little different because you kind of can dictate how long
Hmm.
your episode is, but usually you just see what I call the highlight reels. That's
Hmm.
what people want to see for,
Yeah.
20 minutes of this show that's on the Sportsman channel or Outdoor channel. Um, but I think it brings a sense of reality to it. We talk about reality TV, and most of the time, reality TV is not reality at all.
Right.
Think about those shows, but I mean, you get your butt whipped sometimes. I mean, my dad and I, I grew up watching Josie Wales, Outlaw Josie Wales with him,
Yeah.
and he always say, anytime the turkey's beating, he said, "Whoop them again, Josie," or something,
Yeah.
like that. And so most of the time you come out with your tail tucked between your legs, but you gotta learn from those situations,
Yep.
which I think is neat.
I'll
So,
tell
and
you. And
obviously you've had
yeah.
probably plenty of those stories.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, as a group, and our show is really just based upon a small group of guys. We're all buddies,
Mhm,
and hopefully that's how it's conveyed because that's how we don't shoot spines for our show. Where and what a spine is where they cut back to someone sitting on in front of a counter or something and sitting there telling you what's about to happen or what they just
mhm,
watched. I mean, not that I'm against that. It's just I'd rather just go out and produce a show like it
mhm.
happens. And like you said, I mean, a lot of shows it is you know, you're wanting to put the best of the best out there.
Right.
So with that being said, you've got to uh, you still got to go through a lot of footage. So there's a lot of
Mhm.
footage that's not going to make the cut.
Right.
So we just try to film everything like it is. If a miss happens, there's a good chance the viewers are going to see a miss. I mean,
Yeah. Well, I
it
think
just
it's
happens.
interesting. I mean, people do it all the time. It happens, and it's just like I said, it drives you to go back and conquer that goal, or hey, when I was thinking about it earlier when you were saying it about going back and looking at your footage.
Hmm.
Think about how the great football players do, or any
Right.
elite athlete, even from videoing their batting swing at batting
Mhm.
practice. You're able to go back and look at these things and be like, oh, well, this happened or this happened. Let's build off of this, and it does make you become a better hunter, a better woodsman. And I've had a couple people on the podcast, and we talked about turkey tactics or deer tactics, and woodsmanship was probably the number one thing, and really that's just comes from experience.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. I mean, all the way from to associating other sounds when you're calling, and
Mhm.
whether it be, I mean, I call it capture too, is what a lot of people hear me say capture too a lot, because whether it be a deer, say you're calling at a deer, most
Mm.
of the time that deer just don't turn and come. He's turning
Right.
looking. So that's with a chess match. So I have, I carry a Ziploc bag full of leaves,
Mhm.
and I'll, smack, just tap the tree with it or squeeze that, associate another sound with that. The more real you can make it, the better chance he's going to come to you.
Yeah.
And it's I'm not going to say it works every single time, but there's a good
Right.
number of times that is they've at least closed the distance. Number one, to where I either can get opportunity if I choose it, or they give up their what they are, because a lot of
Right.
times you see a deer, you don't know what it is, you call to it, and they keep going. But if you can get them to stop, associate another sound, that way, if you see, hey, it's that deer that I have been getting pictures of,
Right.
uh, instead of wondering, I'm seeing them walk off, be like, I wonder if that was that deer,
Let's
which
try
is
something
what.
else.
So uh, just trying to make it as real as possible. Same way with turkeys. When you turkey calling, you got a bird close, especially in the woods. You know, reach
Yeah.
over and
Scratch leaves.
scratch the leaves,
Yeah.
and thump the ground a little bit. Do
Mhm.
something, make some sort of noise on the ground.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you'll see that bird maybe just come in, just easing, tipping up through there, just like,
Mhm.
okay, I heard you. I
Yeah.
heard you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. All right, I got Will on from Bear Beans Coffee, one of our great partners here for the podcast. Will and I have been friends now for almost 2 years, and I appreciate y'all tuning into the episode this week. Will, what does this Bear Beans Conservation Partnership look like that you have going on?
Yeah, so I started these conservation partnerships as a way to more directly support some of the greatest conservation groups out there.
Mhm.
And currently, we have three of them that are active. We got one partnership with Howl for Wildlife, one with Blood Origins, and another one with the Houston Safari Club Foundation.
Mhm.
And so the way it works is you can go right to our website, same as before, and find there's a tab on the main menu that says conservation partnerships, and it's a drop down. You can see the different partnerships that we have, and once you go to that page and buy those coffees, 100% of those profits goes straight to that organization. It doesn't. There's no going through Bare Beans or anything. It's just that at the end of every month, the profit from all of those coffee goes straight to the organization. So instead of this Bare Beans making money and then supporting groups, this is going directly. So
That's
it's a
awesome.
more direct way of supporting conservation.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, head over to bearbeans.com, check them out. This is a great coffee for a great cause. So bearbeans.com, you can look at them on Instagram, Facebook, social media pages as well. Head over and get your Bear Beans coffee now. Appreciate it. I think I had Kyle out on the other day, brother Keith out with Chasing 49, and he was talking about painting a scenario, especially when you're bow hunting or something. Uh, use different calls. Think about the time of year you're in. Is it nesting season? What type of year you in? Are they kind of getting back together? The gobbler, you're gonna use a Jake Yelp, something like that. So, there's definitely different things that people can continue to learn and build off of, which I think makes all the fun of it anyway.
yep, for sure. I mean, like, another thing, there's been a couple episodes where, like I said, we show everything. We've got the deer we were after didn't show up, and
Mhm.
we were hunting a food plot, and we've got 20 deer in a food plot out in front of us, and how you get out of there? How do you get out of there? So, and how do you clear that out. So I take a coyote call. I've got a coyote howler that
Mm-hmm.
most of the time I'll howl out of the stand, clear the field so we can get out of there, and
Yeah.
I'll have pictures 10 minutes after we get out of there of deer coming back into the food plot.
Yeah, no, that makes sense because when I was young, and my dad, he would, I, be in a tree stand. Well, he would either put a tree stand up next to me or something like that. And I remember the first time he did that, but he was barking like a dog.
Oh yeah,
It's like,
I've
I
done
was
that
young.
too.
I was
I've
like, what
done
the heck
that
is he
too. Yeah.
doing? Deer take off running like, we just scared all deer, but
Yeah.
yeah, I guess it doesn't seem to bother him too much, really.
No, I mean that's all the stuff they're conditioned to, and they,
Hmm.
as they see it as a threat, doesn't mean that they're gone for good.
Right.
They're going to be back in there, and
Mhm.
I noticed real quick that if you can associate those noises that or if the neighbors have dogs or the neighboring farm that has dogs, I mean that's not a bad idea. Bark like a dog. I've done it
Mhm.
that as well, and yeah, it just gets them out because your objective is to not let them know that you're there.
Right.
So if they're gone, you can get out. Then
You
let
don't
them
want them
come.
to get conditioned to you being there because that's when
Exactly.
they start changing
You
up.
want to hunt the deer. You don't want the deer hunting you.
Right.
So
Exactly. Yeah.
um, so yeah, but that's I mean, ultimately all of that, and like you said, painting that picture is important.
Mhm.
Uh, visualizing how a lot of that's going to go down, or how you want to. It may not go down that way,
Mhm.
but there'll be a point in time when you're hunting when something very similar happens.
Yeah, have you
Oh,
ever noticed? Because it's funny you brought that up, um, a lot of times I get more excited if I have that visualization of a plan in my head, but
mhm.
sometimes I'm just blank. I'm like, "What is gonna happen? What do I even do?" And it's almost like, I love getting up in the morning to go hunting, but you just don't have that same feeling because I do paint it out. And
Yeah.
I'll get up early the next morning, I'll go move a blind or something like that because I have a feeling that this scenario is gonna work better,
Yep.
Do you kinda go through that situation as well?
Oh yeah, yeah, I do. I mean, especially if I'm like been waiting to hunt that set. I hung
Mhm.
it the end of the last season, wanting to go in there during the rut. And crazy thing is for me, it always happens when you don't think it's going to.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yep.
like whenever you drop your release out of the tree, you get down and gotta go do that, or you forget something at the truck and you think the whole morning is blown because you got to go back to the truck and get it. And
Usually happens.
yeah, and it's like I literally just it defeats everything that we tell people or whatever. I literally just blew these woods out
Right.
walking to and from, and then
And killed him. I'm
yeah,
on.
yeah,
I'm
kill the biggest buck of my life.
on.
It's
Yeah.
like,
No, that
but
happens too, and, that I think that just comes from, continuously going, but like you said, most of the time, when you don't have a plan, or maybe you have a plan and nothing goes the way it's supposed to, you usually have success.
yeah, exactly. I mean, there's been several too, even turkey hunts where I mean, it was just dead late season where it was just dead. The birds weren't hardly even talking, and I mean, we went like 4 days without hardly even seeing a bird up in Nebraska sandhills. It
Mhm.
was tough, and there was one little pocket of trees. I was like, "Well, we got one. Let's go around. We'll walk all the way over there." And it was probably about a mile and a half. We get set up, and we're just sitting there, just kind of joking around about everything. And I just let out a call. I'm just yap 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 yap, and I mean, I'm like, "You got to be
It gets serious real quick.
Yeah, yeah, yeah." It's like, "Oh crap," you know.
Yeah.
But and like I said, because I mean, we'd all but chalked everything up. Like, man, they're just ain't no bird. These birds
Mhm.
ain't feeling it. But that's and learned a lesson too. Never give up because
Yeah.
you just never know.
Yeah, keep trying to create that opportunity for yourself because we go down to the Eastern Shore and go seek a deer hunting.
Hmm.
Um, we didn't go this past year, but I've been going for probably 9 or 10 years now,
Hmm.
and we've had success. And you kind of get into a routine. You go to this public land for 3 days to hunt, and I want to go here. It's kind of in my head. I have
Hmm.
continuous success. Well, all of a sudden something changes, and then we got to go somewhere else, and I'm just like. Sometimes I get down. I probably am horrible to even spend time with at camp when I get in this situation, but you know, I go set up and kill a single deer that night. And everybody's like, you're the one that didn't even want to go out. You shouldn't have ever
Right.
killed one. Everybody else is, come back with nothing.
Right.
I was like, oh, you just create an opportunity.
Yep. Yep. And that's what you have to do. I mean, there's,
Yeah.
the thing too about filming, one of the coolest thing though is being able to go to all the different terrain
Mm-hmm.
of the land and the way it hunts every property, the way every kind of property hunts
Yeah.
and it's all different. I mean, there's similarities, but it's still different.
Mm-hmm.
And probably one of the most important things that I look at, and the first thing that I look at isn't really even the property that I'll be hunting, it's the property
Right.
that surrounds it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you know the property that surrounds it, and then you go into the property you're going to hunt, you're going to learn so much faster
Mm-hmm.
how the animals and how the turkeys and deer are using that property and why. And
Right.
so it's gonna really cut down some time as far as scouting.
You look at
And
like terrain features and ag
yep,
fields and
ag
box
fields.
fields.
Yeah, if you know that I've got 10 acres of ag on me and there's 70 acres on both sides, it's like okay, or I've got the same ridge that goes through my property goes 3 miles and it goes to the northeast.
Mhm.
I'm gonna be looking to that northeast corner and seeing, okay, is there ag? Are they just traveling to get there? Then I'm gonna follow that ridge down and try to find where's the closest food source from there, how are they gonna get there, why are they using the property, that I'm hunting if I have no food on there?
Yeah.
Or are they just bedding on my property and then going somewhere else? So it's but so knowing that surrounding property is vitally important, I think,
Right.
to even because I've talked to guys that own property uh and have hunted it for years and went and we drove around the block, looked at it from the aerial map, and it's like, man, I really think you should probably put a setup over here just to see. It could be an observation stand, it could be on the X, I don't know, but the way your property lays, I would definitely. He's like, I've never sat there, I've never jumped deer out of there. Well, he took his boy in there the first morning and wasn't necessarily on the X, but he saw more deer than he ever had through all the years that he's hunted his own property. And he would, but because he didn't know how the deer were
Right.
necessarily using the property. He was just seeing a few deer trickle through, versus knowing kind of why the whys and
Right.
when that they were going to want to be there. So
And before you even kind of went through that story halfway through, I was thinking to myself that one of the disadvantages I think that I've created for myself because I have, Morgan and I went on our first adventure hunt, I guess you could call it, last year to Texas, axis deer hunting. But, I feel like when you get in a place like my dad's farm, you almost get caught up into business as usual. It's kind of what I
mhm.
call it. And I'm just learning this, as I'm developing into a better hunter through my progressions and stuff. Um, I go to the same places. I go to this cornfield, this bean field, that's what I hunt and that's what I've always done. But I think as somebody like you, where I think that you obviously don't lack in that is because you've had to go through these different terrains, these different parts of the country and learn them you could be successful. So it's been, you kind of taught yourself as you're going through, which is pretty
Oh, I was
neat.
the same way, and you're
Yeah.
exactly right. And it changed my approach on how
Mhm.
I hunt, even though my own properties
Right.
I have. I mean, I was like, and I was successful in those places there.
Right.
Uh, but now I've got a better rhyme and reason to why the stand is where it's at or why there's a blind over here.
Right.
Uh, and because I know a little bit more of why the deer are using the property and how they're using it. Uh,
Right.
so, but yeah, I mean, and it's definitely helped me evolve and progress too. And I'm constantly, learning, that's the
Mhm.
thing from each other as hunters and outdoorsmen and stuff. There's, you know, I I love listening. I love talking hunting, listening to hunting story because I learn just
Yeah.
as much from people as when I'm talking to people too. Because I mean, we have to be able to be willing to learn and work together because literally, I mean, they're wild animals.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're wild animals,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
you know,
And one of the things, Larry, kind of building off of that, which I think is pretty interesting. I didn't, I had Carson and Lindsay on Final Draw the other
Mhm,
week, who actually just became our title sponsor, which is awesome. So we appreciate
mhm.
that. Um, one of the things I didn't ask them, which I thought would be cool, really neat to ask you, is just your insight on, the business side of things, if you don't mind going into that. Like, what does it take to have a TV show? Because as a consumer, we only see, you know, Monday, Wednesday, Friday on at 10 to 10:30 or whatever. And as me, creating this podcast or people on YouTube, everybody's trying to do this now, but I don't think I'd say probably 95% of them do not understand what it takes to be in the industry that, everybody wants to be a part of.
Yeah, it's a grind, and I'll tell you, the biggest misconception is from a lot of people is they think that we get paid to be on
Mhm.
TV,
Yeah.
and that's 100% not the case. The way we get compensated is through our partners, other manufacturers, and our partners that want to advertise on our show because of our viewers. If it
Right.
weren't for our viewers, it'd be very, very tough to sell those partnerships and be able to have, other manufacturers want to come on board to help us continue to do what we do. It costs money to go to those, to buy the out of state tags, to we don't just have them given to us. We don't,
Right.
we still, some of the hunts when we do hunt with outfitters, in most cases, we're paying something for those hunts as well. I mean,
Right.
it's a big misconception that, everything's given to us because it's not.
Right.
Uh,
And especially talking about the grind, those first years that you're trying to prove yourself, because somebody just doesn't come on board and say, here's, $1,000, take
right.
it and do something with it.
Yeah.
So
No,
I
it's,
mean, I don't
it's,
think people understand that either.
no, it's, you do a lot for nothing,
Mhm.
starting out. You've got to have some sort of, uh, something to show.
Right.
What's your show identity, and what direction's the show going to go. You've got to make sure that you're uh you're 100% ethical, of course, and also the people you're hunting with, the people you surround yourself with, all of that, in my opinion, makes your TV show. Because if there's now, I'm sure there's probably shows out there that they may do it because they want to see their face on TV. They may not, and then they realize it costs money to do that.
Well,
It's
they
like,
get off there real quick, I'm sure.
yeah, yeah, but for shows that like Carson's, uh, ours, we're filming our 13th season.
Mhm.
There's, uh, we've worked pretty hard to get to where we're at as far as on the production side, to work with other manufacturers that we're thankful for, all of our partners. And mostly, like I said, all of our viewers. Our viewers are the ones that produce the numbers that make our partners want to work with us.
Right.
Uh, whether it be commercials on television, whether it be, print ads or anything, just photography and stuff that we can provide. It's just, there's a lot of different, I guess, tentacles to that that could come to play to landing a partnership that's going to help, to where
And
they
is that
can.
because, it's kind of more advertising opportunities for them when they do that, except instead of just them
Yeah,
buying the
they wanna
commercial
make their
space?
brands visible, and there's so many different ways to market your products and stuff now, and ultimately, a lot of the shows now will just say, "Hey, yeah, we're gonna go use this," and, just because they wanna be a partner, and for me to be on here even talking about a product, I've gotta believe in it, our team's gotta believe in that, and we need to educate ourselves about that product and why we like it, and have a little bit of experience with it.
Mhm.
So, uh, that's why majority of our partners have been very long standing. We've used a lot of the same gear for a while. There's new products that come out every year. Some of it's good, some of it I don't know because I've never used it.
Right.
Uh, but it's one of those where it's like, we got to believe in the products we're using, have confidence in our equipment. So, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of
Right.
deal. So, and
Now, being that it's your 13th season, are you approached a lot by all these new products and stuff? Is it a
uh,
constant thing, or
I'm
do
not
you
gonna say we
have
get
to?
approached at all. Sometimes, budgets change for companies, and just no different than anything in sports or whatever. Teams, guys get traded, partners,
Right.
they may go a different direction or whatever. But sometimes it's hard. Some years are harder than other ones. But that's why I said it's a grind. There's not a lot of really concrete, uh, insight of what the next year is going to bring. So
Yeah.
we got to go out and give it all. Give it our all through the season and have fun doing it,
Right.
and hopefully everybody continues to work with us.
Well,
But
kind of sounds like farming, which my dad does, and it's a big
yeah,
gamble every year.
yeah, yeah.
A lot,
I mean, and it is, and like I said, we've been lucky and fortunate to have the partners we have. I know Carson's had a long-standing partners as well, and they're a great group of people over there at Final Draw too. They're very good friends of all of us that respect the game, and we're looking forward. I think Carson and I have been talking about trying to get together and collaborate and do a couple shows together.
Awesome. Yeah, well, we're looking forward to that. Yeah. And speaking about the grind a little bit more, when I was talking to Carson and Lindsay, we met back at the Virginia Outdoor Sportsman Show in August, and then kind of kept up with each other. We were gonna try to get him down to do a seek a deer hunt and
Hmm.
this and that. But he, one of the things when you're trying to produce these shows, you have to produce content, right? So he was, it was like November, and I was like, "Hey, man, I'm trying to line up the seek a deer hunt. You want to do this or not?" He's like, "I still got tags I gotta, get rid of and punch."
Yeah.
So, I'm sure that goes through your mind a lot too. Is just making sure you get the content.
Yeah, ultimately, I mean, yeah, I mean, at that point, our job is to go out and produce episodes.
Hmm.
And if people want to see stuff hit the dirt, we got to be out in the woods.
Right.
Whether it's raining, snowing, whatever, we got to figure out a way to make it work. And ultimately, I mean, I love every minute of it. Don't get me
Right.
wrong. There's good days, there's bad days, just like anything else. But it is but like I said, it's a grind's the best way to put it, because like I
Yeah.
said, you do have to go out and get the content. And it's not always just the video content. You have to get the video content for the show. But now there's other facets of the business where you may be tasked to go get particular photography or whatever for some of our partners and so on. So there's always something going on content related.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, I mean, I've only been doing it for the last 2 years, just for myself for the podcast and trying to get people interested. Which if you look at the analytics, it has grown with listeners and stuff, which has been awesome. And I think, to be honest with you, I think the Virginia Outdoor Sportsman Show is my biggest first year kind of jump, because I got FaceTime with people. I thought that was
Mhm.
important. And I took my stuff down there and did, I think, 8 or 10 podcasts with just people coming through, from an 8-year-old kid that had killed his first turkey that year to I think it was Mr. Jackson, 87, 83 years old, who was walking around with all these duck bands and goose neck bands and stuff. And he got down there and told his story about just growing up in Virginia and the Williamsburg area, and duck hunting, and just how it was a
Yeah.
love of his. And so I think that was important, which I think when you're looking back over this, Larry, kind of last thing here, wrapping up, 13 seasons. You were obviously with another TV show. You created, helped create another TV show. With things speeding up, to me, with YouTube, podcast, how have you seen things change, and what makes you, how do you stay relevant, right?
In my opinion, staying relevant, you've got to keep up with the times, as you have to adapt.
Right.
And that's why, we've the end of last year, or I guess it was February of last year, we really put emphasis on our Respect the Game YouTube channel.
Hmm.
And we've grown it tremendously just by showing a lot of the content that we have, even stuff that hadn't been on shows, putting that on there. So we dump a lot of content on there as well. And with all the streaming, whether somebody was watching on linear TV or whether they stream with Friendly or Sling or
Right.
whatever the case, you've got to be there.
Mhm.
So that's really, we've adapted. A lot of other shows have adapted as well to make sure that if people want to watch outdoor television, they can find it
Right.
with whatever system they have, whether it be YouTube, whether it be on MOTV, whether it be on Outdoor America or Waypoint or whatever the case may be.
Hmm.
You'll be able to find our show, and and some sort of outdoor content. I do think it's valuable, for sure, because we need more hunters. We need to keep people interested in the outdoors. It's kind of, you know, it's important to me, I know, and to make sure that we've got people out that can keep, you know, deer populations in check. We can work hand in hand with one another to be able to know what they're, whether it's an oak tree or a maple tree or whatever. I mean, that's stuff that goes deep into my roots that I would love to, pass on. That's why I like to go to those consumer shows. I love to go and talk to people face to face and be able to hear their stories and have
Yeah.
them ask questions or me ask questions and just converse, because it really is a grassroots industry,
Mhm.
uh, that I feel like that's an opportunity every single time whenever I've got another fellow hunter come up and tell me his success story or his
Yeah.
son's success story or whatever. It's, now, that's how literally, I mean, I've had people from shows message me that I still talk to now that I met at shows, 10 years ago.
Right. Yep.
So, and I cherish all that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important. I think, as I'm 34 now, so, I've kind of gone through a few phases in my career and, now I work for an environmental, engineering firm, consulting firm, and I get to spend most of my days on the water, which is nice. I'm overseeing stream and wetland restorations right now,
Oh,
and
cool.
I've enjoyed it. But the thing that I've learned mostly that I'm kind of taking to help formulate, whatever this is, this business or whatnot with the podcast is networking. I think
Mhm,
that's the biggest thing that can help you grow or progress in a direction that you want to the fastest. Um,
mhm,
so, like the expos and stuff, I think they're important. I mean, I would have never probably have ever met Carson,
right,
unless it was there. I met Beak Whackers Waterfowl down in King George County. Guy and his wife from my age, they started a nonprofit a few years ago to help take veterans on duck hunts, sea duck hunts. I went down and filmed for them this year. Just
right.
making those connections has been probably the biggest thing, but it's also, I think, when you get that sense of community, even if it's just people you meet, it can help boost, your vision in a certain direction,
Oh, for sure,
fairly quick.
for sure.
Yeah. Um,
Absolutely.
well, Larry, where can everybody find all your stuff at? We can go through that real quick and then wrap the episode up.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, respect the game. You can find us on Sportsman's Channel, for sure. We are on Waypoint. We're on Outdoor America. We're on MOTV. About anywhere you can consume outdoor television, just
Mhm.
look up Respect the Game TV and you'll find us. Like I said, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, Respect the Game TV, go do that. We've got a lot of content that doesn't necessarily reach all the episodes.
Right.
We break a lot of short hunts out, and we've got a series on there called RTG Living
Mhm.
that seems to be doing pretty well and picking up, because it's really, I mean, it may be us out fishing or we could be, I mean, there's a lot of shenanigans going on
Yeah.
there. So,
The fun stuff, the
yeah.
behind the scenes stuff.
So,
No, that's great. And, I think, if you haven't yet, go over there and watch those layout blind turkey hunts, because I'm telling you, I watched them multiple times and now I'm like, okay, well maybe I'll get two under my belt from the blind and I'll try that on the third one
yeah, yeah,
this season. So I'm
yeah.
very interested in it. It looks
Oh,
fun.
there's not a that definitely will change the game. You'll
Yeah.
you'll yeah, it'll get you that hard to thumping.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, Larry. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. And everybody that's listening, go over to Respect the Game, watch the YouTube channel on Instagram. Um, and also continue following the Marshfield Outdoor podcast and Marshfield Outdoors. We got some great content, a lot of awesome episodes lined up for weeks out now. So every Monday we'll be putting out a new episode. So continue following along. And turkey season's coming up, so we're gonna have some great content there as well. But until then, I hope we continue seeing you in the woods.